I am Denise Maes, and I have been retained by Xcel Energy to come out and talk to community about this franchise agreement that will be on the ballot in November. So the next slide, I'm just basically here to do these three things. I want to listen to you as I go through my presentation, get your questions, hopefully answer them to the best that I am able to, and if I can't, I'm going to get back to you when I don't have the right answers. I'm going to share the agreement, and then I want to, of course, answer any and all questions. As the councilwoman said, there are going to be two agreements that I want to talk to you about. One is the franchise agreement, and then we'll go to the companion agreement. But here is what is a franchise agreement. Frankly, I think the term franchise means very little to people. What the heck is a franchise agreement? It's not a McDonald's franchise. It is, it's a franchise agreement, and really all it is a contract. It is a contract between Xcel Energy and the City and County of Denver, and it is exactly how Councilwoman Sawyer said, it is how Xcel Energy is able and when to access the right-of-way that belongs to Denver as well as its streets. And the reason why Xcel Energy needs access to those particular rights-of-way and to the streets is because that is where the utility connections live. They either live underground in a right-of-way or above ground in a right-of-way. And so there is the need to access that, and this franchise agreement makes it plain and clear how and when that can happen. What is happening now is the 18 months that we're doing of talks and conversations. I started meeting with community in January to talk to people about that this was happening. It is something that City Council felt was lacking, that Xcel Energy wasn't doing enough of the public process, and so that is precisely what we've been doing for now a year plus. I have reached out to the 170 plus registered neighborhood organizations to talk to them about this and to listen to your concerns, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to answer some of the questions that were posed to the councilwoman. What we think is at stake is right now there are millions of dollars that go to the City and County of Denver from Xcel Energy as a result of this franchise agreement. More money will go to the City and County of Denver as a result of the companion agreement, and so those are the items that we think are at stake. The next slide is, I'm going to tell you real quickly what it is. Again, it's simply a contract that describes and defines the relationship between the two parties. It is a 20-year term, and I know it's hard to believe that we voted for this in 2006 for the 20-year agreement, and now we're doing it again. And one of the things that is important about the agreement is there might be people out there that say, why can't Denver be its own municipal electric provider? Well, it can under this agreement. Denver can terminate this agreement at any point in time. It can municipalize or it could find another entity to provide these services. Xcel cannot terminate this agreement at will. There is the companion agreement, if you don't mind, CL. You went one little fast. I know you're trying to rush me, and I want to abide by your thing. I'm going to just tell you what it isn't. The other part was what it isn't. It is not a decision on your rates. Rates are decided by a separate entity known as the Public Utilities Commission. They are the entity that decides rates, not this agreement. It's also not an agreement, or it also doesn't define what the clean energy goals are. That is something that is defined by state law, by state government, the state legislature. And it's also not an exclusive franchise. As I mentioned, that Denver retains the right to grant franchises to other providers. Now, on the next slide, here is the monetary piece of what Denver gets. Xcel Energy is obligated to pay a franchise fee that represents 3% of the general revenue that Xcel Energy brings in. That is approximately $30 million. We actually know now from 2025 that amount is $34 million. That $34 million goes to Denver's general fund, and Denver can spend that money at its own discretion. It is general fund money. If that $34 million goes away, that is a big gap for Denver to fill in general funds. There's also $150 million a year in infrastructure, and let me explain that real quick. Right now, if there is a construction project, and think about the vibrant bond projects that are coming up, there will be the need to move utilities. and to relocate them or move them for a while and then put them right back to where they were before. Well, that is the obligation of Xcel. And that amounts to about $150 million a year, that without that, Denver itself would have to pay for those relocations. The $10 million a year is the 1% from the electric rates, electric revenue. That goes also is set aside, and only DOTI, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, decides how that $10 million will be used. So there was a question earlier about that piece. It's within Denver's discretion to decide how that $10 million is spent. And secondly, it is expensive to underground. The 10 million, frankly, doesn't buy a lot. But what happens with that 10 million is it doesn't go away. If it's not depleted in 1 year, then it just keeps a rollover, and it's $10 million a year, which, if my math is right, that's a pretty good chunk of change over a 20-year period. The next here is the obligations in the franchise agreement on Xcel are, of course, it must restore power as quickly as it can. It has to be there for emergency response. Xcel Energy also has an obligation to provide contracting business to women and minority-owned businesses. It also is a union shop where a large percentage of the Xcel workers are union. The future proofing is basically saying that Xcel Energy should always be on the lookout for new technologies to develop better, quicker, more efficient energy to the Denver resident. And then there are audits that are associated with the franchise agreement. They are all paid for by Xcel, but they are at the discretion of the City and County of Denver. Now, here is the companion agreement, Denver Energy Partnership Agreement. The next slide, I want to tell you, first of all, that it's one of its kind. There is basically, Xcel Energy has not negotiated such an agreement with another municipality anywhere. It's bold, there's a lot of money in this agreement, and let's go through it. So there is a committee, I should tell you, and this committee and the advisors are really going to speak to the question mark about the alternative energy ideas, because part of the scope of this agreement is to explore just that. And not just alternative energy, because there are already state energy goals that Xcel Energy has to comply with. But there are also provisions in here to look for how can we do rates differently? How do we help energy users that use less or want an alternative? How do we give back to those particular customers? So all of that is part of this agreement. The next slide is going to be it's a little much, and I'll try to go through it as quickly as I can. But right now, the City and County of Denver does have an electric heating rate it's actually going to be filed soon. It was going to be filed in July. So it's an electric heating rate pilot, and it's for purposes of exploring different ways of developing or providing electricity, most particularly to downtown customers. Right now, a lot of the downtown customer base uses a water cooling system that is very, very inefficient. An ambient loop is a lot more sustainable and also a lot more efficient. I could say a lot about the ambient loop, but I won't bore you, except to say that it is more efficient and better overall for the environment. We want to do permitting quicker. What happens in a lot of instances right now, a project is ready to hit go, but oops, electric and other utilities are not ready to go. And so this is trying to put things on track so that there is a lot more coordination. That is similarly true with the substation design. I should mention here, since the councilwoman mentioned the substation in your neighborhood, Xcel has agreed to put 1% aside of every new substation development for beautification purposes only. So 1% set aside of the construction cost in order to address visual impacts of substations. There is also, we understand, of course, the imperative need on the behalf of Denver that they want to put more affordable housing units online. And so we want to give those priority, as the city does, in order to make sure they're up and ready to go. We're looking at different rates. There is a city-led study right now about how do we have different rates for different types of customers. We have different rates now for business, commercial versus resident, but now let's think about whether or not even within those big categories, we can develop other categories and other different ways for rates. There's the sustainability goals, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the clean energy programs. We also know that there's going to be greater and greater and greater reliance on electricity, and so Xcel is obligated to upgrade its electric grid to make sure it's sustainable and that it can take on the larger loads as they come on. On this point, I'm going to just say real quickly on data centers, as a regulated municipal public utility, Xcel Energy is obligated to serve any and all entities that come on to its grid. What it is doing with regard to data centers, it has filed what is called a large load tariff, which says you large load users, you pay your own way. You build your own substations, you pay higher rates for the energy you use so that the cost of the data center use is not spread around all the other residents and customers of Denver. Thank you. That is right now before the Public Utilities Commission, and we need their approval to do it, but I think it'll happen. That is the load forecasting that we want to be able to estimate electric loads. And then, of course, we know there are a lot of customer concerns about the service that Xcel provides on occasion. We know we're not perfect, and we've made an obligation in this particular agreement to work harder, faster, better, and to work in coordination with the City and County of Denver to be more responsible, more answerable, and more accountable to the Denver customer. The next slide, CL, is This is I think this is probably good. I could put this all in one slide, but these are all new provisions in this agreement that really want to speak to the customer who has a hard time paying their utility bill. So we're looking, as I mentioned earlier, of alternative rate designs. There's also, Xcel has committed to $10 million in shareholder funds to strengthen energy assistance programs statewide. Now that's statewide. There is an energy program that the state has that Xcel provides money for. Denver, as well as all other Colorado residents, are eligible for it. Xcel Energy has also agreed to provide a $2.5 million one-time payment in 2027 that Denver can use to help individuals pay their utility bills. There's also going to be a navigator program, and it'll be at approximately $250,000 per year, that there will be a navigator, an individual or individuals or an entity. There's a lot of specifics. It can go either way in the agreement, where this entity or person will go out in community and let you know what are all the energy rebate, refund, assistance programs that are out there to help you. It is really amazing to me how many programs there are that people don't know about. And they're like in silos. There's one program here that the county has. There's one program here that the state has. There's another one that, the Office of Economic Development has. And so the idea here is to have one entity that can inform all of you where these programs are, how to enroll in them, and how they help you. There will be also added dollars of $125,000 a year for more low energy assistance, and it'll grow at a 3% rate annually. And then the backstop dollars is really not that important. Right now, there are a lot of state mandated costs for energy assistance. That's the $10 million I referenced before. And what Xcel Energy is saying is that should those programs go away, we will still continue to put money in the pot. So the next slide. Here's what happens without the agreements. I think that's probably the important thing. What Denver keeps. You may not have a franchise agreement, but you still have Xcel Energy as your utility provider. Pure and simple, because right now today, there is simply no alternative. So you can vote no on the franchise agreement, but at the end of the day, you still have Xcel Energy as your provider. We'll still have the PUC that regulates rates. You'll have clean energy mandates that are required by state law. There will be the state energy assistance programs that currently exist. There is a climate protection fund, incidentally, that, yet again, something maybe you don't recall or don't remember, but some years ago, we agreed to a tax, a sales tax that goes to this climate protection fund, and it raises about $40 million a year, and that's in the CASR, which is our climate sustainability office that uses those dollars for clean energy. And then, of course, Denver always keeps the right to pursue municipal power or to go to other franchisees. What Denver loses, the $30+ million a year in the revenue, the franchise fee, $150 million in the infrastructure relocation, and think about it, we have a lot of projects that we supported in the Vibrant Bond initiative. A lot of those projects will require relocation of utilities, and that is a real important benefit of the franchise agreement. There's also the $10 million a year that I mentioned on the underground program. There's the audits that would go away, and the additional dollars that we provided in the companion agreement, the $2.7 million, the $125,000, the navigator, all of that goes away. So, and that's what the DEPA losses would be. Because if there's no franchise agreement, there's no companion agreement. The next slide, I think we're coming here near to an end. Actually, we could skip this. It was really this working group, I should mention, that actually put together this negotiating for the companion agreement. It was something that the mayor created, and they're the ones that developed a lot of, or helped the city to negotiate some of the companion agreement provisions. Here's the timeline. We started the community engagement, like I mentioned earlier. We're continuing that, obviously. It was 2 weeks ago that City Council voted to refer this to the ballot. And as Councilwoman Sawyer said, she was one of the council members that supported simply sending it to the voters. Council could not decide yay or nay on the franchise agreement, but they could say yay or nay, let the voters decide. It was a 10-2 vote, let the voters decide, and now it really is up to Xcel Energy to make the case to you that we deserve a yes vote on this franchise agreement. And so it'll now be on your already crowded November ballot. I just wanted to put this up here so that you know how to reach me. My name is Denise. I have this email that's the franchise outreach team. I monitor that email. If you have questions this evening, love to hear them. If you think of questions tomorrow or the day after or whatever, get the email out and send me an email with your questions. And then there are all the ways to participate. There will be more community meetings. You can email us, contact your council member, and Denver Gov actually has a really good website that's really up to date on the franchise agreement. So I do believe that is it. I want to thank you, and then I already have a hand up here for questions. I want a little applause, though. I mean, why not, right?